Hey guys, we are back at Hangman's Alley, and today we are working on some more housing as well as some storage areas for the gunners here at Hangman's Alley. Now this is the last video before the final settlement tour, and I still have a few filler shacks and whatnot to build, but I won't actually be doing a separate video for those. I'll just point them out during the tour. There's some pretty interesting structures to get to today, so let's get started, shall we? So we're going to start things off on the edge of Hangman's Alley with the shack foundation with these pillars attached. And I'm just trying to get it placed on this ledge even with that floor there. Nice. I'm going to adjust that floor back some. We're going to use a shack wall and roof combo for the outer wall, and I don't want it to stick over the ledge at all. Let's snap that into place. Looks like it's glitching with the wall there a little too much, so we can move everything towards us a little bit. That looks pretty good. So now we're going to use this wall here to cover up the gap in between the floor and the existing roof there. You know, we're never really going to see this side of it, but knowing that gap is there just bothers me, so we're going to place this wall to act as a support. So now we need a couple of end caps and a roof so we can enclose that structure we just made. And everything should just snap on into place. There we go. Now I'm going to fall here in a second, which I did a lot, by the way. Now that I've climbed back up, we can go ahead and snap the roof on into place. Nice and even. So now we're going to need to support the roof, and we're going to use one of these junk walls here. I really like this one in particular, just because it looks really junky, and that just really fits with the rest of this build. Just a matter of lining it up correctly and getting it to face the right way. I think it looks better if we turn it around. There we go. And now we're going to use one of these half walls, and we're just going to put it in place here to finish out this structure. We're going to have to shrink it down a little bit using place everywhere, just so it fits in that existing space. And just line it up so it's not glitching through too much. Nice. Now for the second structure, we're going to go ahead and use one of these floor and roof prefabs, and it fits in perfectly in this little corner here. Just want to make sure it's not glitching with the wall at all. So now we're going to go into the metal tab, and we're going to use one of these curved pieces like I've used in several of the other builds here at Hangman's, but I want it to be up against that other brick wall there, and I figured I would just be able to place one and then snap the next one over, but that didn't work out that way. So we're just going to make sure it's nice and even there, and then we're just going to use place everywhere to inch it back. And it just takes a couple of minutes here to get it in the right place. I love place everywhere. It really is my favorite building mod for sure. It works really well. I just love how versatile it is, you know? That looks pretty good. Not glitching at all. Now to add a roof, just so we can extend out this structure a little bit. And that snaps on into place, but it is glitching with that metal piece there. So we can just slide that over a little bit more. Almost got it. That looks pretty good. Now to add a few more walls, just to flesh out the structure a little bit. And we're going to go with the corrugated steel. I think it's going to be a great mix of wood, corrugated steel, and metal, similar to some of the other structures we built here at Hangman's. And that looks a little bit too plain. Let's add one of these thicker walls here. Now the structure was starting to look a little plain, so we're going to use one of these corrugated steel pieces from the warehouse tab. I really like the ones that are kind of torn apart. Now we're going to take a couple of these quarter boards, and we're just going to place them down just to change up the texture of the flooring a little bit. Just make it a little more interesting to look at. Just trying to line them up so it's not glitching through at all. That looks pretty good. And now we're going to go ahead and use the select all glitch, and we're going to sink the entire structure down a little bit, just to make the floor a little bit more even. That's about right. Nice. Now for the doorway, we're going to go back into the warehouse tab, and we're going to use something that I've done before, and we're going to use one of these little, what are they, quarter wall pieces, I guess, of corrugated steel that's kind of ripped apart. It just adds to the junky feel. Now we're going to add a little bit more texture to that torn apart wall that we added earlier. And we're just going to take some of the shack walls here and just glitch that into place so it looks like they patched the corrugated steel with whatever materials they had sitting around. The idea is to glitch the two walls together so it looks like the boards are intertwined. Now for the other side, we're going to go ahead and use one of these door barricades. And the idea is the same as with the shack wall. We just want to glitch it into the warehouse wall there so it looks like it's intertwined. Nice. So now we're back into the metal tab, and we're going to use one of these floor and roof combos to create an entryway for the structure. We just want to get it right up against the existing wall there, but not too close that it glitches through. Now that we have the frame of the structure in, we can start adding some junky walls in. And we're going to go back to the warehouse tab and grab these quarter wall pieces, the ones that are torn apart, and we're just going to add a couple of them to this interior wall here. Just want to get it so it's not glitching through too much. Looks pretty good. And now for the other side. We just want to go ahead and place it nice and close, but keep it from glitching through the metal piece there. Just want to line it up. That looks pretty good. Nice. Now before we complete the rest of this structure, we're going to go ahead and create the staircase that's going to be just to the right of this. So we're going to use a shack wall and place everywhere to just lower that wall down. I'd like the platform the stairs go up to be even with the roof there to the right. With the wall in place, now we can create the platform the stairs are going to rest on, and we're going to use the same technique we used to create the roof in the previous video. And we're just going to take some of these quarter boards and just snap them into place. And now we can use place everywhere to just lower them to the correct height. Just got to do one at a time, get them nice and even. That looks pretty good. And for the other side, we're going to use another wall to act as a support, and we're going to use the same technique. Just snap it into place and then use place everywhere to lower it to the correct height. Now to close off either of the ends, on this side we're going to use some corrugated steel, also from the warehouse tab, and we're just going to go ahead and glitch that into place. Now for the other side, we're going to go back into the homemaker tab, and we're going to use that half wall that I like using so much. Now it's just a matter of lining it up and getting it nice and close so it looks attached. That looks pretty good. But since I use that wall so much, I'm going to go ahead and use a window board just to change up the texture a little bit, add a little bit different color in there as well. And I think it's probably a little bit too big. So we're going to go ahead and use place everywhere to just shrink it down. Then it should fit on there pretty well. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Nice. Well, with the staircase platform completed, we can go ahead and finish out the rest of this structure. I think using the corrugated steel wall and roof combo there fits in pretty nicely. And then we just need to put a couple of end caps on there just to complete that part of the wall. And they just snap right into place. Now to finish off the wall that's facing the staircase, we're going to use one of these chain link fences. And we're going to use the technique that we used in the previous video to create that makeshift window. We're going to do the exact same thing here. The idea is to get the chain link fence in place. We don't want it to glitch through the wood too much. Now I couldn't get the fence to not glitch through that wall at all, so we're going to go ahead and use some of these window boards just to make it look like that's what's holding the fence up. And so we just want to glitch that into place so the boards look attached to the wood as well as the fence. That looks pretty good. And for the other side, we're going to add a couple of more window boards. Just shrink it on down. And then go ahead and get that into place. Nice. And now for the opposite wall, we're going to go ahead and take one of these junky shack walls and place it behind the corrugated steel and just glitch it into place. Want to make sure it's making contact with the floor and the ceiling there. Just lower it down just a little bit. Now that's a junk wall. Now we're going to make a doorway out of shower curtains, the exact same technique I used in my Taffington boathouse build, and we're going to use one of these conduits as a curtain rod. So we just want to glitch that into place, and you might have to change the sizing using Place Everywhere just to make sure it fits in nicely. Now with the conduit in place, we can go ahead and take the curtains, and we just want to glitch them into the rod so they look like they're attached and able to slide along. Now the curtains are fairly narrow, so I'm glitching two of them together just to make it a little more realistic as far as it stretching out to, enclose that area. Nice. Time for another stairway. So we're going to start off with one of these angled shack bridges, just so we can get the height right, so we know how tall to make the platform. Now that we have the height for the platform, we can go ahead and use one of the roofs from the wood tab to create the actual platform. Just a matter of getting the angle correct and then glitching it into the brick structure here. Got to double check that angle. Looks a little bit off. There we go. Then we can go ahead and grab another roof just to make that platform a little bit longer. But you can see how it sticks out past the edge there. So we just can use Place Everywhere to inch it back into place. That looks about right. And then just make it nice and even with the other roof. Nice. And now we're going to go ahead and take some of these junk walls and just cover up this grating there. And also gives the roof something to be attached to, so it's not just sinking into that grating. It just looks a little more realistic. And a little more junky, of course. And the second one just glitches into place. Nice. We're going to need a way to get from the platform to the top of the structure here. So we're going to go ahead and use one of these angled shack bridges again. And just line that up nicely so it's attached to the roof. And that looks pretty good. Now to close off the structure, we're going to go ahead and use one of these shack walls and simply just glitch it into place. Now it didn't look quite right to have the roof attached to the brick, so I'm going to add one of these half walls here just so it has something for the roof to be attached to. Now to support the other side of the platform, we're going to go ahead and use one of these shack columns. Now I've used this technique several times before, and the idea is that you want it to be attached to the platform, but we don't want it to glitch through the top at all. So the bottom of that angled shack bridge is sticking through the platform, and it just doesn't look right. So we can use some crates here, stacked up nice and high, to just cover that up. Just a matter of getting the angle right and getting the height of the crates correct, so it covers up the bottom portion of that bridge. And you can see it just takes a little bit of maneuvering, but I think we're getting close. And then to angle it so it doesn't look perfectly straight as well. Of course, those crates are floating now, so we can take an additional crate and just place it underneath to cover up that gap. Now on the platform itself, when we glitched the two roofs together, you can see the textures are colliding and it's causing them to glitch out a little bit. So we can cover that up with some ply boards. And we just want to angle them and get some fairly junky looking ones. Just so it, you don't have to see that glitching material at all. Just a matter of using Place Everywhere to sink them down. Nice. Now on the other side of the artillery platform, we're going to create a little makeshift roof to cover up this walkway. And we're going to start with some of these angled shack bridges. And we're just going to use a couple of them, glitched together just to create a foundation for the roof. So we want to make sure that they're pretty close to even. It doesn't have to be exact because we are going to cover them up. We want them to be pretty close. Nice. With the supports in place, we can go ahead and place the roof on top. And we're just going to glitch that on in. And we want to get it low enough so it looks like it's attached to the shack bridges. This structure will have a fairly low roof, so we're going to use this platform to get the height right. Just make sure I can walk underneath it. Perfect. With the first roof in place, the second one should snap right in and extend the roof to the brick. Now for the next roof, we're going to go ahead and use one of these canvas roofs from Thematic and Practical in the Vendor tab. And it snaps to the vanilla roofs, and then we can just use Place Everywhere to inch it back so it's not clipping with any of the pre-existing structures. You can see there it's clipping with the concrete roof there a little bit. That's easy enough to fix. Just slide it on over. Nice. Back to Thematic and Practical for some shack walls. I really like how junky they look. It's a great mod, and they keep adding new stuff, so I highly recommend downloading it. I mean, just look how those walls look. That's just great. And you can see I did have to shrink the roof down to fit it in there, so we're going to have to adjust the size of the walls there a little bit as well. But they do glitch into place fairly well. And that looks pretty good. And now to close off the opposite side, we're going to go ahead and use one of these half walls from the Homemaker tab again. And we just want to make sure it's making contact with the brick as well as with the roof. But we don't want it to stick through too much. So just have to line it up. And that looks pretty good. And here we go with another shack column. And again, we just want to line it up and make sure it's not glitching through the top of the roof there at all. And now we're going to use some shack walls and some chain link fences and create another makeshift window. So the idea here is we want to glitch them into place so they're making contact with that pillar there, but we don't want them to go all the way through the lip on the roof there. So it's just a matter of lining it up, and we can actually use that ledge to make sure it's straight. And then lower it down enough so we have a pretty good sized window. And now for the chain link. Now this is the exact same technique we used earlier. We just want to make sure that it's attached to the shack column and not glitching through those boards at all. And then of course we want to get the height right as well. You can see there I'm going to have to move the shack walls out a little bit because the fence was glitching through a little bit too much. But that's easy enough to do. Then we want to get the height right, so we're going to raise that up just a little bit. There we go. And then to continue the chain link, we're going to have to put this one at a little bit of an angle just to make sure that the fences are attached and it's not glitching through the wood at all. Nice. So we're going to use one of these shack walls from the Metal tab to close off this little patio area. And so we're going to place it down and glitch it into the brick wall here. But you can see it's not quite wide enough to cover that entire gap. So we can just grab a second wall and just snap it on into place. But since we are technically out of bounds of the settlement, we'll have to place it inbounds first. Nice. Back to the Homemaker tab for a junk wall. We're going to glitch that into this metal wall here just so we can add some supports. Otherwise it's just a floating wall. And if we glitch it through, and you can see the wood there acting as supports, and we have the corrugated steel sticking through the other side. Turns out I don't like the way the corrugated steel sticks through. So I'm going to go ahead and take a second wall from the Metal tab, and we're just going to go ahead and glitch that over the corrugated steel. Just so you can't see any of it. It just looked off to me. Just a matter of getting it lined up correctly. Much like the first set of metal walls that we put down, this wall is not wide enough to cover that entire gap. So if we just slide it over to the left there a little bit, we should be able to fit another metal wall in, just so it covers up all of the junk fence there. And it won't snap in for some reason, but Place Everywhere will allow us to slot it in there. Now before we get to the tour, let's go ahead and build one more staircase. This time we're going to use pallets, and it was suggested in the comments of a previous video that I can just place pallets down and then rotate them, and that way I wouldn't have to have any extra support for any pallets hanging over the edge. And I think it works out pretty well. With the staircase built, we can just drop it into place. And now for the other side, we're just going to use some of these vanilla stairs just so that we can walk up and down over this lip. Nice. So here we are approaching the first structure we built. And as we walk up onto this landing, you can see there's some storage there. And then we can drop down to this ledge here. Looks like we have some seating with a cigar and some whiskey laid out. And then inside the shack, we have a little bit of storage. Have some supplies, as well as some alcohol, it looks like. And then, of course, across from that, we have a bed. Can never have too many sleeping areas. This guy has quite the vantage point on two different roads approaching Gunner Plaza North. Pretty good sniper spot, I'd say. Now let's head up this ladder here. I really love these ladders. I do detail how I built those in a couple of different videos. I'll go ahead and throw one on the screen right now. Now we can head up that stair we made, and you can see it works pretty good. Now heading in through this covered walkway, we can check out another storage area. I really like these low-hanging ceilings. It definitely feels really cramped in here. You can see some munitions as well as some crates and a suitcase there. Then out here we have a little private seating area. A little bit of beer and some Nuka-Cola. These guys have a pretty good view. And we got some meats on the grill there. Looks like a little makeshift table as well. They even have fresh melon. Wonder where they were able to get that. Now heading back through here, you can see a little makeshift window we have there. I really like the way that looks. Extra junky. That's one of my favorite things. You could probably tell with how many of them I built. Then walking over here, we have a little room. It's pretty open, but still protected. Some alcohol on the ground there. Looks like a little bit of storage on that changing table. I really love those beds. They come from Thematic and Practical. That's a great mod. Definitely recommend downloading that. Now, walking over here, we can head up that staircase we made to get to the artillery platform. Get a little bit of a view of the rest of the alley there. And then coming up here, you can see all the shelves they have laid out. Looks like some seating with some Nuka-Cola as well. Look at that. Downtown Boston. Then of course, a great view of Diamond City. Very good strategic place for a gunner base. Just to remind the jewel of the Commonwealth that they are not the only power in town. And then coming over here, we have a little sniper's nest there. Got a decent view. I really love the artillery replacement here. I'll also link that in a Google Doc in the description in case you guys want to download that. Of course, that gunner there is floating, but I'll have to fix that later. Now let's head down here and we can check out the officer housing that we built earlier. Of course, as we walk down, you get a little view of a lounge area there, as well as the clinic. And then you can see the other artillery on the opposite side of the alley. Now, underneath the stairway, we have some more munitions storage. Quite a few shells there, as well as a minigun, it looks like. And just some explosives stored back there as well. Now, I will decorate this area a little bit more before the final tour. It's looking a little sparse. And we walk right past the brewmaster here. Looks like he's pretty hard at work. And here we have our officer quarters. Well, for two of them at least. I really love how junky that looks. That's just great. That wall in particular. Well, I guess that wall too. So we walk on through the domed archway. Or domed archway? Eh, whatever. Walk through. I like that entryway. How about that? And then we have another private seating area. Little ledge is a table. Now let's head into this first housing unit. And you can see he has a little bit of storage, as well as an armor workbench. Wonder what that guy's working on. And of course, more storage. Looks like some materials on the shelving unit back there. And then inside this little alcove here, we have some robot armor, it looks like. That must be what he needs the workbench for. Now, walking back out onto this patio, you can see a little basket of grenades there for any enemies walking below. Now, over here, we have our pilot's quarters. He has that makeshift window so he can keep an eye on his vertibird, even when he's in his room. A little bit of food and alcohol laid out as well. Looks like he has a pretty nice setup. Speaking of vertibirds, let's head out there and take a closer look. So we can come around the corner here, and we can check out that staircase we built. Built a lot of those today. I love how the chain link fence is bending over like it's been there for a little while. Now, before we check out that vertibird, let's take a look at this hidden guard station over here. You can see it's fairly well protected. Have some ammunition there and some grenades. And a really nice view of the street below. Nice vantage point in both directions. Now let's head over to that vertibird, shall we? These roofs make a great walkway leading up to it. Now I realize the vertibird's probably too heavy for the roof, but it does look cool. Now let's get inside there. Check out a end of dungeon steamer trunk, as well as some ammunition crates. And then a great view of the cockpit. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. Leave me a comment down below if you have any thoughts about this build or any of my other builds. Subscribe if you want to see when my next video goes live. Should be the final tour here at Hangman's Alley. And then I need to get back to Starlight to finish up that build. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until then, enjoy your time in the Commonwealth.